You ever have that moment where, deep down your life is about to turn into a story folks won't even believe? Yeah, that happened. The words hit before the brakes did. You think you can just ignore the rule, and just like that, my life went from quiet to chaos in the space of a single heartbeat. Her white Lexus came flying down. The gravel screeched to a stop so close I felt the grit sting through my jeans and the smell of burnt rubber mixed with some expensive perfume that'd haunt me for weeks. There she was, Karen Ellsworth, stepping out like she owned the road sunglasses, flashing back the new sign I'd just hammered into the ground. For half a second, I saw myself in those mirrored lenses, standing calm and steady on the far side of a line she wasn't supposed to cross. She slammed the door so hard I felt it in my teeth. There were 3 feet of open field between us, but it may as well have been a chasm. She marched over, jaw set, voice sharp as barbed wire. "I've been president of Meadowbrook Estates for 15 years, she snapped like she expected me to salute. You can't just throw up an eyesore like that without approval. I wiped the dust off my hands, tried to keep my voice as steady as my pulse. "Good morning, Mrs. Ellsworth. You're standing on my side of the line." Her nostrils flared. "There is no your side. This entire lane falls under our covenant section." I let her finish. Rule number 1 with people like Karen: let the storm blow itself out. When she finally ran out of air, I said, "According to the county map, this property's 50 feet outside your HOA, certified 3 weeks ago." She took a step closer, her perfume cutting through the heat. "Then, you can explain that to my attorney. I'll be issuing fines $200 per day per violation until this is removed." She spun around, gravel popping under her heels like punctuation, and sped off in a cloud of dust. I watched her go, glanced up at the security camera above the gate, the little red light blinking steady, recording witness to everything. If you've ever had a neighbor who thinks they run your life, buckle up. Because that's where it started for me. When the dust finally settled, I just stood there, hand on the signpost, brushing grit off my jeans, thinking about those metal letters. Private property, no HOA jurisdiction, looking so small against all that open land. But to me, that sign felt like the first real boundary I'd put down in years. This place, it wasn't some happy accident. I spent 3 months hunting for it, not for the view or the soil or the square footage, but for the freedom. My last neighborhood. It was the kind of place where community meant control. Couldn't park in your own driveway overnight. Mailbox had to be some shade of taupe that looked exactly like everyone else's, and God forbid your trash bin didn't close all the way on a windy day. Once I got a violation notice for that exact thing. Wasn't neglect, just the wind. I remember sitting at my kitchen table one night, 3 violation slips spread out like court summons, and realizing I was paying monthly dues to folks who thought courtesy came with a price tag. So I started looking. County records, zoning codes, boundary lines, every search was careful, methodical. I'm an analyst by trade, and I treat peace of mind the same way I treat data: verify, then trust. When I found this old ranch lot, it didn't look like much. Overgrown fences, a gate rusted crooked, a barn so tired it looked like it'd lay down if you asked. But there was a kind of earned quiet in the air. I called a property rights attorney that same day. "No HOA?" I asked. He laughed. Not even a whisper of one. That was enough. 2 weeks after closing, I was out there repainting the barn, digging new post holes, upgrading the well pump. I put up cameras not because I'm paranoid, but because I've learned peace is something you record just in case someone tries to take it away. My mother called a lot those first few weeks. "How's the new place?" she'd ask usually while I was tightening the last bolt on something or digging another trench. "Quiet," I'd say, and she'd come back with, "Quiet can be dangerous if you don't know what to do with it." She had a way of turning small talk into sermons. "I just want a place that's mine." I told her no rules, no committees, no one measuring my grass to prove I belong. She laughed, soft and knowing. "Then make sure your piece has a backbone, Donovan. Boundaries aren't fences. They're definitions of respect. Keep yours clear. That stuck with me. Maybe that's why I laminated the survey map. Maybe that's why I bought the heavy steel hinges. Every small decision felt like staking my claim not just to land, but to the right to live without asking permission. By the end of the second week, everything worked how I wanted. The gate swung smooth and silent. The intercom buzzed and blinked, and for the first time in years, I felt peaceful. I thought I was done building. But that morning when Karen's SUV came roaring up, I realized I was wrong. I thought it was a delivery truck. Then I saw the flash of the HOA decal on her windshield. Her door opened before the car even stopped, and the whole perfume and rules tornado blew in. My quiet cracked. She drove off, promising $200 a day fines that didn't even exist. And I just stood there watching the dust settle, listening to the camera light blink, steady, calm proof. I didn't know it then, but that sign I'd posted wasn't just a decoration. It was a declaration. And it had just started a war. Monday morning came with sunlight through the blinds, coffee in hand, that soft hum from the fridge. That means the world is leaving you alone. My phone buzzed. Subject violation notice. Immediate action required. From Meadowbrook Estates HOA Board. I stared at the screen for a full minute. My property wasn't even under their jurisdiction. But there it was, all official blue HOA logo signature from President Karen Ellsworth. The email read like a courtroom transcript trying to be a threat. Dear Mr. Pierce, following a routine inspection, your property has been found in violation of community standards, including but not limited to unauthorized signage, non-compliant gate color, fence, height, vehicle storage, landscaping, failure to submit modification request, and non-payment of HOA dues. You are hereby instructed to correct all violations within 5 business days or face fines of $200 per day per violation. Failure to comply may result in legal action. I read it twice, then again slower. 7 violations, none of them real. I took screenshots, saved them in 3 different places: laptop, cloud, external drive. Documentation wasn't paranoia. It was muscle memory. Then I forwarded it to my attorney. Subject line: received this today, property confirmed outside HOA per county records. Please advise. By the time I hit send, my pulse had settled. Facts. Don't panic. Still, I opened my property docs, the laminated map deed certification letter, and laid them across the table like evidence in a case I never asked for, but apparently now starred in. I drafted a reply. Calm, direct. Mrs. Ellsworth, thank you for your message. According to the certified county survey, my property lies outside Meadowbrook Estates HOA. Documentation attached for your records. Best Donovan Pierce. No anger, no sarcasm, just paper meeting noise. Before sending, I triple-checked every attachment, then hit send. The cursor blinked like the screen itself was holding its breath. Then the message was gone off to wherever unreasonable authority goes when it runs out of ground. The rest of the day, I tried to keep to my routine, fed the horses, fixed a loose hinge, logged some client calls. But something about the air felt heavier, like the quiet before a thunderstorm. Around noon, my mother called. You sound distracted, she said. Got an email from the HOA, I replied. I thought your land wasn't part of it. It's not. Then why bother you? Some people don't recognize boundaries unless you make them pay attention. She sighed. Donovan, remember what your father used to say, paper protects, but only if you keep it dry. I told her I'll keep it dry. By evening, there was still no reply from Karen. No follow-up, no apology, not even a read receipt. Just silence. But I know silence, sometimes it means someone's plotting their next move. And I could feel hers already on the way. It started like most modern wars do, with a notification I didn't ask for. Tuesday night, right after dinner, my phone buzzed with a message from an old coworker, one of the few folks I still knew inside Meadowbrook Estates. Hey man, you should see this. There were screenshots attached. I opened them expecting another fake violation notice, but no, it was worse. At the top was a screenshot from the Meadowbrook Community Watch Facebook group, 200 members strong. A brand new post by none other than Karen Ellsworth herself, HOA president, wielding her authority in bold print. Neighbors, I want to inform everyone about a concerning situation near our eastern boundary. A new resident has purchased property adjacent to our community and is refusing to comply with our long-standing neighborhood standards. He has erected an industrial gate, posted aggressive signage, and rejected all reasonable communication. His behavior threatens the visual harmony and property values we've all worked so hard to maintain. The HOA board is reviewing legal options to protect our community. Beneath it, rows of angry emojis. 47 comments, each one more hostile than the last. Unbelievable. People like that ruin good neighborhoods. Sue him till he sells, typical outsider. Not a single one of them had ever met me or set foot on my property. They just took her word and ran with it. Only 2 people even tried to push back. One asked, maybe it's just a boundary mix-up, and another suggested, shouldn't we hear both sides? Both got drowned out, told to trust the board. I sat at my kitchen table staring at those screenshots until the words blurred. Karen hadn't just crossed my property boundary, she'd gone public, rewriting reality, turning fiction into HOA gospel. Smart, honestly. Even if she couldn't control the land, she'd control the narrative. And there's nothing folks in an HOA love more than a little drama, especially when it's not about them. Did I reply? Not a word. Arguing on lines like yelling into a hurricane, lots of noise, nobody listens. Instead, I opened my laptop and started a spreadsheet titled Meadowbrook HOA Escalation Log. Across the top, date, time, event, evidence, witnesses. First entry, April 21st, 9:47 a.m. Verbal confrontation at the property line. 6 camera angles, HOA president on site. Second entry, April 25th, 6:32 a.m. Violation email received 7 fabricated claims. Attorney notified. Third entry, April 25th, 8:17 p.m. Facebook post, defaming property owner, 47 comments. 200 group members, public slander evidence. Every row got a link, screenshots, videos, emails, all labeled, cross-referenced, time-stamped. Some folks build fences. Me, I build records. When I was done, I backed it up 3 ways, local encrypted cloud. Then I just sat back looking out through the window at the dark field between my house and hers. Her porch light burned like a little beacon out there, the only thing left glowing in the night. I didn't feel angry, just steady. While she was rallying a mob, I was building a case. She had a narrative, I had the truth. By Thursday, the heat shimmered off the gravel like glass. I was deep in a client call when the intercom at my gate buzzed one long, insistent tone that sure didn't sound like a delivery driver. I muted my mic, pulled up the camera feed, and saw 3 figures at my gate. Karen was front and center, pastel blazer pearls, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. Beside her, 2 men, both with clipboards, HOA logos stitched on their shirts, standing like backup. I sighed. Excuse me in a moment, I told my client, already feeling the tension build. Switched over to the intercom app, pressed the button. Can I help you? Can I help? Karen leaned right into the camera, expression tight. Mr. Pierce, we're here to conduct a routine inspection of your property. Please open the gate. I kept my voice calm as ever. You don't have jurisdiction to inspect anything on my land. Mrs. Ellsworth, one of the men, probably pushing 60, tried his best authoritative voice. Under Section 4.7, the Architectural Committee reserves the right to access any property that could impact community standards. I shook my head. That section doesn't apply to me. You're standing at my boundary, not yours. Karen stepped closer. You're being uncooperative, Mr. Pierce. Refusal to comply can and will result in legal consequences. Her voice was crisp, but I could see a flush creeping up her neck. Control was her oxygen, and she was running out. Mrs. Ellsworth, this is private property. You can observe from the county road, but if you cross that line, you'll be trespassing. Silence. Then metal rattled. She grabbed the gate and shook it, the clang echoing across the field. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "You can't just lock yourself away and pretend you're above the community. We have rules. We have standards." The men looked uneasy. One whispered something. She waved him off. "Karen, maybe we should—" "Shut up, Mitchell." She didn't even look at him. I pressed the intercom button again. "You have 10 seconds to step back from my gate before I call the sheriff." Through the camera, I saw her hesitate, grip tightening. Inside, my mother looked up from the kitchen table. "Donovan, what's happening?" "Just an HOA field trip," I said, quietly dialing the sheriff's department. 15 minutes later, a cruiser rolled up, blue lights flashing in the sun. Karen was still there, pacing, muttering, now surrounded by a handful of onlookers. Deputy Hollis stepped out, young, steady, and professional. He walked up, listened as Karen launched into a whole speech about noncompliance, obstruction, community integrity. When she finally finished, he came to the gate and pressed the button. "Mr. Pierce, Deputy Hollis County Sheriff's Department. Mind if we talk?" I grabbed my binder survey, map, deed, zoning letter, and met him at the fence. He flipped through my documents, lips moving as he read. Karen tried to butt in twice, but he just raised a hand. Finally, he closed the folder and turned to her. "Ma'am, these records say this property is outside your HOA's authority. You don't have legal grounds to enter or inspect." Karen went crimson. "That's not what my records show." "The county made a mistake." Deputy Hollis didn't flinch. "County records are county law. Ma'am, if you think there's an error, take it up with the assessor's office. But right now, you're on his property after he's asked you to leave. That's trespassing." Karen blinked, stunned. "I want your supervisor," she snapped. "I know Sheriff Briggs personally." "You're welcome to file a complaint," Hollis replied, calm as ever. "But right now, I need everyone to step back and return to the public road." Mitchell and the other inspector backed away. The small crowd scattered, but Karen stayed rooted to the spot, glaring through the bars. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "No," I said quietly. "I think it's documented." That did it. She spun on her heel, stalked back to her Lexus, and peeled out in a cloud of dust. Deputy Hollis nodded, tipped his hat. "You handled that well, Mr. Pierce. Keep everything on record. Paper beats politics every time." Then he was gone, the gate camera blinking quietly again. The field was quiet, but it wasn't the same kind of quiet. This time the whole world had seen what happened. The next morning the air was lighter. Maybe it was the rain overnight, maybe just relief. Either way, I knew it was time to move from reacting to reporting. By 9 a.m., I was uploading the camera footage from the gate incident to a secure drive labeling every clip, timestamps, file hashes, transcript, notes. I wrote a summary and sent it along with the evidence to the county zoning office. On April 27th, HOA members attempted to conduct an unauthorized inspection of my property, claiming jurisdiction. Certified county documents attached. Then I waited. Bureaucracy moves slow. By mid-afternoon, my nerves were raw every time the email alert chimed. But patience is a weapon, and I was ready to use it. At 3:14 p.m., my phone rang. Caller ID, County Zoning Office. "This is Donovan." "Mr. Pierce, this is Officer Kading from Zoning." Clear, professional, a woman's voice. "I received your report. Thank you for being thorough. It helps a lot." I chuckled, trying to shake the tension. "I make documentation a habit." "That's obvious," she said. "I wanted to let you know something that might explain what's been happening. Mrs. Ellsworth, the HOA president, submitted a proposal last year to expand Meadowbrook's boundaries to include your parcel and 2 others. She claimed she had property owner consent, but when we checked, we found no signatures. The county denied her request and closed the case last October. For a second, I just stared out the window at the sun on my new fence. So she knew this land wasn't part of her HOA. "Yes," Officer Kading said. "She was informed in writing. I can send you the documentation if you'd like. Please do something certified with the county seal. You'll have it by the end of the week." She paused. "You did everything right. Keep doing it right. That's how you win these things." When the call ended, I sat there letting the weight of it all settle in. All that noise, all the threats, the fines built on something she knew was false, not ignorance, arrogance. Friday. A knock at the door. Mail carrier with a manila envelope, certified mail from the county. I opened it right there on the porch. Inside, a 2-page letter with an embossed seal confirming my property was wholly outside Meadowbrook Estates HOA. Any attempt to enforce HOA covenants or collect fees is unauthorized. I read it twice, then again, then scanned it, made 6 digital copies, and slid the original into my binder. For the first time, none of the HOA's power or posturing felt intimidating anymore. I stood there on my porch looking back at the neighborhood in the distance and felt something settle deep in my bones, a kind of confidence that can't be faked. This wasn't about winning. It was about documented truth. And truth doesn't need permission to stand. Monday morning rolled in soft with a little haze on the grass and the distant hum of a FedEx truck climbing up my drive. One of those thick envelopes with embossed lettering, the kind lawyers use to make a statement. Clayton and Grayson, attorneys at law. Didn't even need to open it to know what it was. I thanked the driver, waited till the dust settled, then sat down on the porch with my utility knife. 3 crisp pages slid out, heavy paper, gold seal, that sterile smell of legal intimidation that's almost a cologne in its own right. Cease and desist. Immediate compliance required. I read the first line out loud just to hear how ridiculous it sounded in the open air. To Mr. Donovan Pierce, you are hereby instructed to remove all non-compliant structures, signage, and fencing located within the Meadowbrook Estates jurisdiction. Your refusal to comply has caused measurable aesthetic and financial harm to the community. Should you fail to act within 10 business days, the HOA reserves the right to pursue damages in the amount of $50,000 for property value depreciation and emotional distress caused to residents. Emotional distress. That was a new one. I sat there with my coffee, marking up the letter in red pen like it was a freshman term paper. First flaw within the Meadowbrook Estates jurisdiction. Annotated right next to it. Property confirmed outside jurisdiction. See county letter. Second flaw, measurable financial harm. Circled, underlined. No evidence, no appraisal unsupported. Third flaw, legal authority of HOA. I wrote ceased at boundary line, county denied expansion. By the end, the letter looked like a teacher's worst nightmare. 3 pages of legal overreach annotated to within an inch of its life. I scanned each page, saved them, attached them to a new email for my attorney. Subject received, cease and desist analysis attached. 5 minutes later, he replied, Donovan, this is impressive garbage. Nothing in here holds up. Want me to reply? I typed back, I'll handle this one myself. Better if it comes from me. Then I started my own letter. Kept it simple, direct, polite, but surgical. Dear Mr. Grayson, I acknowledge receipt of your correspondence dated May. Please be advised that my property parcel, E147, lies wholly outside Meadowbrook Estates jurisdiction, as confirmed by County Zoning Administrator on April 29th. Letter attached. Your claims are therefore without legal basis. Any further attempts to enforce HOA regulations upon non-HOA property will be documented and treated as harassment under county ordinance. Respectfully, Donovan Pierce. I attached the county letter, the certified map, my ID, printed 2 copies, one for my records, one for mailing, drove into town, sent it certified mail with return receipt requested, and dropped a copy at the sheriff's office. No emotion, just procedure. On the drive home, I realized for the first time I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was leading. Folks like Karen and her crowd, they thrive on noise, on intimidation, because it works on people who've never seen it fall apart. But intimidation only works if you let it fill the silence. That night, I filed away their cease and desist right behind the certified county letters and the return receipts. The gate light blinked on against the dusk, not as a warning anymore, but as a witness. A few days later, I got a call from a local number I almost let go to voicemail. Something told me to answer. Mr. Pierce speaking. My name's Russell Abbott. I live in Meadowbrook. I think we need to talk about Karen Ellsworth. His voice was weary, the kind you get from too many years of keeping the peace by swallowing your own. We met at a coffee shop, halfway between my ranch and the subdivision. He was already there, seated in a corner booth with a thick binder in front of him, no small talk, no pleasantries, just slid the binder across the table. I kept everything he said. The first page was a violation notice from 3 years back. Tree exceeds height regulation. $200 per day fine. An oak tree. He said his grandfather planted it in '78. Karen said it violated sightline standards. There was no such restriction for pre-1990 trees, but that didn't stop her. He'd paid over $3,000 in fines before finally cutting it down. "You know what she said when I sent proof I'd removed it?" he asked. "Thank you for maintaining visual consistency." His voice cracked a little. I kept flipping pages, printed emails, inspection reports, stamped final warnings, fines for a garden hose visible from the street. Threats of foreclosure for a single mom who parked on her own curb during a storm. Another citation for a retired teacher's improper mailbox design. Each story, the same pattern: intimidation, escalation, submission. Most people just paid, Russell said, cheaper than fighting. Some moved, a few went to court, but she always buried them in paperwork. She's good at it, he admitted. Knows the system better than anyone. Midway through, I stopped cold. There was a complaint dated the same month Karen had filed her failed boundary expansion request. "You've had this all along?" I asked. "Every document," he said. "She's been doing this for 15 years. She wins because she never meets anyone who fights back." His binder was organized by year, each tab a different color. It wasn't obsession, it was survival. "She's targeting you because you represent what she can't control. You live outside the map she built for herself. That terrifies her." He glanced up, eyes hollow. "You know what's worse? Her husband knows she's wrong. I asked him once, lawyer to lawyer, if those fines were even legal. He told me off the record, no, but she doesn't listen to anyone, not even me." That landed heavy. She wasn't enforcing orders, she was feeding an addiction. Control disguised as responsibility. The last section of the binder was photos. A cracked mailbox, spray paint across it, "Rules Matter." A garden gnome smashed in two. She got worse after that, Russell said. Started posting names in the newsletter, called it accountability reports. I closed the binder slowly. "Why tell me now?" "Because the county called. Someone filed an official complaint about harassment. They're reopening her old cases. They wanted my documentation. I gave it to them. But I thought you should have copies too, just in case." He slid a flash drive across the table. "Everything's on here. You're not her first target, Donovan. You're just the first who knows how to fight on paper." We sat there, the espresso machine humming behind us, the flash drive between us feeling heavier than just a piece of plastic. "Do you think she'll back off now?" I asked. He shook his head. "People like her don't retreat. They double down. If the illusion breaks, she breaks with it. When she loses control, she looks for someone to punish." He finished his coffee, tucked the empty binder under his arm, and left. I sat there a while staring at that flash drive. When I got home, I copied everything to my evidence folder, labeled a new section, Historical Pattern, HOA Abuse. Every document slid into place like another brick in a wall of truth. The storm hadn't hit yet, but now for the first time I wasn't standing alone. That evening, just before sunset, a new email came in: "Emergency HOA meeting tonight. Agenda pending legal action. You're invited to attend." It was from Mitchell, the same man who'd looked uneasy at the gate. The note underneath was brief. "Several of us want to hear your side before any decisions are made. 7:00 p.m. at the community center." My attorney called as soon as he saw it. "Donovan, you don't have to go. You have no obligation." "I know," I said, watching the last light fade from the gate camera. "But maybe it's time they all see the truth for themselves." He sighed. "Just record everything. Already planning to." When I got there, the parking lot was full. Every car lined up neat as dominoes. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over folding chairs, and a crowd of 40, maybe 50 people. At the front stood Karen, neat as always, notes, stacked laptop-ready projector humming. She froze when I walked in, eyes narrowing. "You're not a member," she said, her voice cold. "You don't belong here." Mitchell stood. If this meeting's about him, he has a right to hear it. Karen's jaw tightened. Fine. But he doesn't speak until I'm finished. Wouldn't dream of it, I said, settling in the back row, body cam light blinking. Karen's presentation was a performance slides of my gate, my sign, my barn. "This is what's threatening our community," she declared. Non-compliant structures, aggressive signage, hostile behavior, photos, captions, every word sharpened for effect. Then a slide, a cropped image of our first confrontation, me standing my ground at the fence. "Mr. Pierce has repeatedly refused communication," she continued, "disrupted our unity, lowered property values, created a hostile environment." The room murmured, some nodding, others uncertain. Finally, I stood. "Mrs. Ellsworth, may I present my documentation for the record?" she snapped. "This is my floor." Mitchell looked at the board. "I think we should hear him." Reluctantly, she stepped back. 5 minutes. I hooked my laptop to the projector. The room went quiet as the first video rolled, Karen shaking my gate, shouting about standards, gripping the bars white-knuckled. The audio picked up every word, every threat. Next clip, her SUV at my mailbox at night, her silhouette swinging a bat, 3 strikes, echoing in the quiet. Gasps ran through the room, then her shouting at Deputy Hollis, the sheriff, calmly explaining she had no jurisdiction. When the screen went dark, nobody moved. I turned to the board. "Everything you've just seen is time-stamped, verified, backed up by county records. I didn't come here to destroy anyone. I came to end this pattern for me and for everyone she's ever done this to." From the crowd, Russell Abbott stood. "She fined me $3,000 for a tree my grandfather planted before the HOA existed. Said it was too tall. Made me cut it down." Another woman rose. "She sent letters about my daughter's car being in the driveway. I was recovering from surgery. She didn't care." A third voice. "She put my name in the newsletter for not repainting my mailbox. I was in chemotherapy." Testimony after testimony. Karen tried to interrupt, her voice trembling. "These are isolated." Mitchell shook his head. "No, they're consistent. We've all seen it." The vice president stood. "I move for a vote of no confidence in President Ellsworth." Seconded, someone else said. 8 hands raised, none opposed. Karen looked around the room, searching for loyalty. The same people she'd ruled for 15 years stared back, quiet, ashamed, free. Her husband near the door just lowered his head. Karen gathered her notes, voice breaking. "You're making a mistake. I built this neighborhood." Mitchell replied gently, "You built a prison. We're tearing down the walls." She walked out, heels clicking, the sound fading into a silence that lasted long after the door shut. Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. The quiet was enough. When I left, Mitchell's voice followed me. "Mr. Pierce, thank you." I nodded. I just documented what happened. Outside, the air was cool, the night still, the world suddenly honest for the first time in years. 3 days after the meeting, my phone buzzed with an email from the county office. Subject line, "Final findings, Meadowbrook Estates, HOA investigation." I stared at it, thumb hovering, heart thudding like I'd just run a sprint, then opened it up and scrolled. 12 pages, every word sharper than the last. Over a 3-year period, HOA President Karen Ellsworth issued $47,000 in unauthorized fines, conducted unapproved inspections, and misused HOA funds for personal legal action. The county recommended full restitution, leadership restructuring, mandatory transparency, a complete overhaul. I read it through twice slower the second time. Every paragraph felt like closing a door on a room I'd been trapped in too long. That afternoon, another email followed, this time from Mitchell. The new interim president, Mr. Pierce, on behalf of the Meadowbrook HOA board. "I want to formally apologize for what you endured. We are refunding fines to affected residents and adopting new policies, full board approval for all fines transparency reports, written permission for inspections. Thank you for holding us accountable. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen. The same organization that tried to run me off now using words like apology and reform. I typed a short reply, thank you for doing the right thing. That's all I ever wanted. 2 days later, a car pulled up at my gate. Not the white Lexus, an old sedan, beige tired. The man who stepped out was smaller than I remembered, shoulders hunched like the weight of his own name pressed down hard. Mr. Pierce, he said. I nodded. Mr. Ellsworth. He handed me an envelope inside a personal check. For the mailbox, he said quietly, and for everything else. I don't need it, I said, trying to keep my voice gentle. I know. He replied. But I do. I should have stopped her sooner. I hesitated, then nodded. I'll donate it. There's a domestic violence shelter in town, helps people who feel trapped by control they never asked for. He looked at me a long moment, then a faint, sad smile creased his face. That sounds right. Before he left, he added Karen's in treatment. Therapy, medication, counseling. She's not the same woman you met. For what it's worth, I think she finally sees it. Maybe peace starts there, I said quietly. By the weekend, the neighborhood that once eyed me like a threat began changing shape. Saturday morning, a small crowd at the gate. Neighbors holding plates of cookies, potted flowers, awkward smiles. The woman who'd once called me the outsider online stepped forward, eyes full of apology. We came to say thank you and sorry. I hesitated, then opened the gate. They walked in, curious but kind. Someone admired the barn. Another petted the horses. They stayed nearly an hour talking about everything but the war that brought us together. Before leaving, one woman squeezed my hand. You did what we should have done years ago. I just wanted to be left alone, I said, honest as I knew how. Sometimes she whispered, that's the bravest thing anyone can want. That night the air felt different again. Not heavy, not anxious, just still. I sat on the porch, coffee steaming, listening to the crickets and cicadas instead of the beat of my own nerves. The cameras still blinked quietly along the fence line, but now they felt less like guards, more like reminders, boundaries, patience, the hard-won peace that follows proof. A new HOA newsletter arrived in my inbox just after midnight. Its tone was nothing like the old ones, no bolded threats, no lists of violations. We are rebuilding trust. Transparency is our new standard. Every resident deserves respect, not fear. No signature, just a community trying to remember what it means to be one. I leaned back, let the chair creak, staring at the black horizon where my land ended and theirs began. The boundary line hadn't moved an inch, but somehow the distance between us had changed. For months, silence had meant danger, the calm before the next email, the next fine, the next knock at the door. But tonight it meant something else. Choice. Peace. For the first time, that silence didn't feel defensive, it felt earned. 3 months went by. The county road outside my ranch looked the same as always, long, quiet, warm with sunlight, but the world beyond the fence was changed. Another HOA newsletter came this time with a header, Embrook Estates, a new chapter in transparency. It sounded nothing like the old regime. Now there were open budget meetings, audit reports, a brand new appeals committee. The final page caught my eye. 3 months ago, a boundary dispute forced us to confront how power can be misused and how accountability can rebuild trust. Today, Meadowbrook stands for fairness, not fear. No names, no blame, just truth finally in the open. I closed my laptop and stepped outside. The morning sun painted everything gold dew on the grass, the gate humming quietly, not as a barrier anymore, but as assurance. That's when a beige sedan slowed at the edge of the road. For a second, my chest tightened out of habit, but when the door opened, it wasn't fear that followed. It was something closer to empathy. Karen Ellsworth stepped out. She looked older, softer, the armor she'd worn for years stripped away. Her hands trembled a little as she approached the gate. I'm not here to cause trouble, she said before I could speak. I just needed to say something. I didn't answer, just let her talk. I'm sorry, she said at last. her voice breaking for everything. The harassment, the fines, thinking. Authority gave me the right to control what wasn't mine. She blinked away tears. My therapist calls it boundary anxiety. I used rules to keep my world predictable, but all I did was make everyone else's smaller. For the first time, I believed her. I stepped a little closer, kept the gate between us not out of fear, but out of respect for the symbolism. Mrs. Ellsworth, boundaries aren't walls, they're definitions of respect. That's all I ever wanted. She nodded, eyes wet. I know. Too late to fix it, but I know. I'm glad you stood your ground. You made me see what I'd become. She turned, and when her car disappeared down the road, the air felt lighter. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It just meant the story could finally end. That afternoon, Mitchell, now the HOA president, stopped by the gate with an envelope, a printed invitation to the new community appreciation picnic. I smiled at the irony. The same community that tried to fine me for existing now wanted to share lemonade and barbecue. I didn't go to celebrate. I went for closure. Children laughed near the swings. Neighbors waved. Someone handed me a slice of pie like nothing had ever happened. Mitchell stood and spoke, voice ringing with a calm I'd never seen in that room before. We learned that rules mean nothing without respect, and that one person's courage to document the truth can change an entire community. He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. That evening I sat on the porch again, same cup of coffee, same view. The gate camera blinked under the orange sky, not as a warning anymore, but as a kind of heartbeat. The horses grazed, the world was still. For months, that silence had been my armor. Now it was just peace. Because peace isn't the absence of noise, it's the moment you no longer need to defend it. I opened my laptop one last time, wrote the final entry in my case log. Matter resolved. Boundaries defined. Truth recorded. Then I added a line that mattered more than any other peace achieved. And if you've ever stood your ground against unfair power, I hope you tell your story too. Because truth, once recorded, never disappears. And neither does the strength it leaves behind. Time has a funny way of folding itself over when a chapter closes. You start to measure your days not by what goes wrong, but by what doesn't happen at all. No angry letters, no surprise visits, no sudden knocks rattling the doorknob in the early dark. I got used to a kind of peace that's hard to explain unless you've lived through months, even years of waiting for the next shoe to drop. For a while, every creak in the floorboards, every unfamiliar car idling on the road made my gut tense. But with each quiet morning, that tension softened. 3 months turned into 4, then half a year. Grass grew taller along the fence line, and the horses grew thick coats against the early frost. Life found its way back to normal. Sometimes I'd catch myself watching the gate camera out of habit, waiting for another confrontation. But there was nothing, just sunlight slanting across the barn, or maybe a neighbor walking their dog, waving at the field. The world felt new and old at the same time. The new HOA newsletters kept coming, but they'd changed so much I barely recognized them. Now they had open minutes, line item budgets, photos from community cleanups, even a section called Neighbor Voices where folks could write in about things that mattered to them. No more accountability reports, no more fear-mongering. One month, the front page featured a photo of Russell Abbott helping repaint the old park gazebo, a handful of kids with paint rollers grinning at the camera. There was a little blurb. Thank you to all the volunteers who made this possible. This is what community looks like. I clipped it out, pinned it to the fridge. Neighbors I'd never met before started to wave as they drove by. A few stopped at the gate to say hello, ask about the horses, or just thank me again for standing up. The woman who once called me an outsider brought her son over to meet the horses. He was shy, kept hiding behind her leg, but after a while curiosity won out, and he reached out to touch Velvet's nose. I saw something in his mother's eyes. Maybe gratitude, maybe a little shame, but mostly relief. She said, "I'm glad you're here," and I believed her. One evening I found a note tucked in the gate. "Thank you for making things better. My family's lived here for 20 years, and this is the first time I've felt at home. No signature, just a first name, Lucy." I kept it, slipped it between the pages of my evidence binder right next to all the violation letters and legal threats. A reminder that even the worst chapters can end with something quietly good. As winter settled in, I got a card in the mail, plain, unadorned, no return address. Inside, just a few words written in a trembling hand I'm learning to let go. "Thank you for showing me how." It was signed Karen. For a long time, I just stared at it, thumb brushing over her name. It didn't erase what had happened, but maybe it didn't need to. Some people never change. Others just need the world to stop spinning so they can finally see where they stand. Russell stopped by more often, sometimes just to chat, sometimes to drop off a new stack of old newsletters he'd uncovered. We'd sit on the porch drinking coffee, watching the sun slip behind the tree line. He'd talk about his grandfather, about the oak tree he lost, about the years spent feeling powerless. "You know," he said once, "I used to think fighting back was pointless, but watching you do it made me wish I'd tried sooner." I shrugged. Sometimes the first brick in the wall comes from the last guy who finally gets tired of getting pushed. We laughed easy and honest, the way friends do when the fight is over. I made a habit of riding the fence line at dusk. Not because I expected trouble anymore, but because I liked the peace of it. The horses snorting, the crickets in the tall grass, the smell of earth cooling as the sun went down. I'd check the hinges, run a palm over the wood, just feeling the solidness of what I'd built. My mother called one night, voice gentle. "You sound lighter," she said. "Maybe I am," I answered. "Maybe peace is just what's left when you're done defending it." The spring thaw brought another change. Mitchell, now full-time HOA president, stopped by with a box of seedlings. Figured you could use these around the barn. Beautification committees got a new agenda. Native plants, pollinator gardens, less time worrying about mailbox colors. We planted them together, knees in the dirt, laughing about how the old regime would have fined us for getting our boots muddy. "Funny how easy it is to change things," he said, "once you remember what matters." One afternoon, I got a call from Officer Kading at the county zoning office. She sounded almost cheerful. "Just wanted you to know Meadowbrook's gone 2 quarters without a single boundary complaint. Thought you'd appreciate the stat." I did. More than she knew. Not every scar faded. I still caught Karen's name in conversation. Sometimes someone would mention her in the grocery store, or a neighbor would sigh and say, "Well, at least we're not going back to that." But the sharpness was gone. Even her husband, Mr. Ellsworth, would wave if we crossed paths in town. He seemed smaller but lighter too. There were nights when the wind picked up, rattling the windows and making the old barn creak, when the fear would try to creep back in. But now it faded as quick as it came. I'd stand at the kitchen sink, coffee in hand, and remind myself, "This is yours. No one's coming to take it." That's the thing about boundaries. They're not just lines on a map. They're lines inside you too. The kind you draw when you decide what you'll stand for, what you'll protect, and what you're willing to let go of. I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't to fight. It's to endure, to outlast the storm, to build your peace one patient day at a time. The last thing I did was close the evidence binder, slide it onto a shelf in the office. On the spine, I wrote Meadowbrook Truth 1. Not because I needed to remember the fight, but because I needed to remember that fighting for truth changes more than just your own life. It changes everyone around you too. Sometimes late at night, I'd think about the folks who never got their justice. The ones who paid their fines, sold their homes, gave up. I hope they know wherever they are that one person pushing back can make the walls tumble down, that their stories mattered, even if nobody heard them at the time. And if you're sitting out there listening thinking your story can't change anything, let me tell you, you're wrong. Paper beats politics, patience beats intimidation, and one person with the truth is a force the world can't ignore forever. If you've ever drawn a line and stood your ground, you know what I mean. So, if you've got a story like mine, if you've faced down the petty tyrants, the ones who think power's an excuse for cruelty, I hope you'll share it. Comment below or tell a neighbor or just write it down for yourself. Because once the truth is out in the world, it never disappears. And neither does the strength you find inside yourself along the way. That's how peace is made, not by erasing the past, but by finally owning it one inch at a time. And that's my story. That's how I found my way home on my side of the line at last.